Jazeker. Let's go.
Podcast number 8. Great to be here. Great to have Ben here with us. It's going to be a good day. We're going to figure this out. We have some technical difficulties before this recording, and we're working through it. We're learning. Hopefully these microphones, we have not heard podcast 7 yet. The first time using these mics, so hopefully they're good. Otherwise, podcast 8 is going to sound a little jank, but we're doing the best we can with the resources we got. So
I think we can. I mean, like, we're still in the beginning stages of the podcast. I think it's just crazy, honestly, that we're even at podcast 8.
Yeah.
Most podcasts don't make it this far. They usually falter on episode 1 or 2. People realize the difficulty that it takes to actually create a podcast, which you and I have definitely kind of discovered. It's been a little rough, but we're doing it, right?
Yeah, I think we're feeling it right now, because after this month, we've seen that we're growing. We surpassed every goal we possibly thought we could pass in the last month, and it's only getting bigger. And so with that pressure, it's like, okay, we need to keep going. We need to keep producing great content, learn how to edit our clips, and just keep pushing. And it's definitely a little bit stressful, but I like it. We spend our day just working our 9 to 5, 40 hours a week, working our 9 to 5. The rest of the time, we're just like doing nothing. So now we're being productive. We're bettering ourselves. We're learning new skills, and we're challenging ourselves. And we both been challenging ourselves editing the last month, and it's just been nuts. Like I started just editing like 3 videos a day, and starting with this podcast, we're going to be manually editing 4 clips each on our own. Let us know what you think. It's going to be a really fun challenge. It's going to be very difficult because we're not editors. And I mentioned the word like productive, and I am so happy to see where we both are right now. It's September 2023 to where we were last year. Not that we've been bad or anything, but what we are doing with our spare time has been awesome. We're getting up early. We are working on our business, our goals, working our 9 to 5s, then being husbands, and then also working on our other businesses. And it's fantastic. It's not been easy. It's been hard. We've had a lot of struggles. I've had a ton of struggles. Getting up in the morning, I talked about it I've talked about it probably every podcast. Getting out of bed has been the hardest thing for me. But I got out of bed and I'm awake right now.
Yeah. No, that's what it's all about. I mean, you mentioned productivity as well. But you mentioned productivity. Productivity is where all this comes from, and it's where this all goes, right? It's like one big constant loop, right? It's all about productivity. We do it because we just want to produce more, right? And a lot of that is substantiated just by the fact that we've seen so much growth happen. We've only been doing this for really about a month and a half, right? We're on podcast 8, but we are working a week ahead. Mm-hmm. And on some of our other stuff, we're on like 2 weeks ahead, right? In terms of like some of our clips that we have created and stuff. And all the growth has just been it's been actual, right? Like, that's the best way to describe it. We've had actual growth, which we did not expect at all.
No.
We literally started this journey because we had a vision, we had a dream. The dream had, it had no limit. There was no cap on what our dream was. We just wanted to have a podcast, and we wanted to make it successful. Now, we had a vision of all the different steps that it would take to get to that dream, but we had no idea that those visions would actually come to reality as fast as they did.
No.
I mean, we started this thing, we actually started producing the clips and the actual, different production value of the podcast about 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, probably 3 weeks ago.
About 3 or 4 weeks ago. And already our YouTube channel has literally, I'm not even joking, it has more than 10x'd in terms of popularity and like interaction and people who are liking, people who are subbing, people who are viewing. It's just been nuts.
We have subscribers that aren't related to us.
Like, I know, it's kind of weird to think about.
That's absolutely insane. That we've gone from literally 0 views to not having a podcast to getting a couple thousand views a day. Yeah. Like, it's insane, and it's all just because we had a vision and we had goals, and we worked hard every single day to get towards those goals.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of the human mind just wants you to think that you have a goal. It's like, you can't do it. It's going to be difficult. You're not going to be able to learn this quick. Somebody out there is better then you edit. But you have to just do it. You have to put your foot down and say, okay, this is going to be hard. I'm going to figure it out and succeed anyway.
Yeah.
And that's what we've both been able to do over this last month. And we met yesterday and we wrote out our goals. We wrote out our vision for the last quarter of the year.
Yep.
And that's super exciting to have something tangible to be working towards. And a lot of people get stuck with just ideas. And say, hey, I want to do this, but no one actually executes on it. We have countless friends that have talked about, hey, I want to be doing this, but I just don't have the time. It's kind of hard. And to be doing it, not to like say we're these great, amazing, special people, it just shows our character and how we're able to push through adversity. And making that decision to move forward when it's tough is not easy. For me, how I've been able to become the person who's able to push through adversity has been what I've had to go through when I was a firefighter and working out. Working out has been probably the most influential thing for my drive and my discipline. Because if anybody who's worked out, you understand it hurts, it's hard, and it's not that fun. It can be fun, but it hurts. And you have to be consistent, and you have to be there every single day. And then what you learn when you're doing that, working out consistently, is that that's only like 20% of getting fit. The rest of it is what you're doing when you're not working out.
Yeah.
It's what you're eating, how much you're sleeping, if you're drinking too much alcohol, if you're smoking a bunch of stuff. That affects your life immensely, especially when it comes to working out. And that's where I have pulled from to be productive.
Yeah.
And to drive.
Well, and it's seeing what happens as a result of productivity that I think also really drives productivity, right? So over the last month, we've done a certain amount of figures, right? We've posted a certain amount of videos across all of our different channels and platforms that we have, and we've seen the type of growth that drives by creating that type of like minimum, right? And so we set our metrics based on that, right? So we've created our baseline, right, for a month. We post 3 videos per day for each platform, 1 podcast per week. And then in the hopes that will drive us to get a certain amount of type of growth, because it's what it did before, right? We know what is going to necessarily drive growth, and that's just action, right?
Consistency in action. 100%.
Consistency in action. If you say consistent in doing something is going to necessarily be produced by it, because production has to happen if you are in the act of production, right? It has to happen. It's sort of like a law of nature, right?
Yeah.
If I move, like the physical definition of work, for example, is when an object is, basically displaced, right? So if I push a boulder and I push it 10 meters, the amount of work that I've done is equal to the amount of distance that I've pushed the boulder, right?
Yeah.
And so that's production. That happened as a result. The work has to exist because I'm displaced the boulder, right? It's the same thing with like content creation and honestly everything that exists out there, right? If you do a certain amount of work, something is going to be necessarily displaced a certain distance or some sort of number, some sort of number away from you, right?
Yeah.
It's going to grow. And that's what we've done. And we've seen what the growth is based on what we've done. And so if we can stay consistent to our metrics, we're going to stay consistent with our growth. And that's the biggest goal.
And that's the hope is once we set that baseline every week, no matter what, we're recording 1 podcast and posting 3 videos on each platform, so 9 videos a day, that we're going to see growth. Those platforms and the algorithm appreciates consistency. And right now our actual edits aren't the highest of quality, but we're getting them out there. And as we continue to get them out there, and how we've challenged ourselves this week, going into the end of the quarter, of manually editing and going with a fine-tooth comb and pulling out the best possible clips, we're going to see hopefully huge jumps in our actual metrics. We're going to see more views, more subscribers, more interaction on our
Yeah.
on our platforms. And I think what a lot of people struggle with is fatigue. When they get stuck with the problem, they go, I know I have to be doing this. I want to be better, but I'm just tired. The day I worked all day, I'm tired. I didn't get enough sleep last night. I was playing video games. That they need some kind of help and a little bit of extra oomph in the day. They're awesome tool. It's not something that I take every single day, but I look forward to the times I actually can have them.
I mean, that would be super expensive for a whole day.
I mean, I know people that are able to do that and that take them multiple times a day.
That's honestly, that's the
me.
key part of this podcast. You know, we're just trying to produce enough so that we can get the revenue that it would take to have a feel free every single day.
That's hey, write it down. That's another goal.
There you go. Yeah.
Have a feel free every single day.
That's the goal right there. Feel free every single day. Once we know that we are able to use our revenue to buy a feel free every single day, that, you know, like everyone talks about how they had that, like, oh, I made it moment, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, that was the moment that I realized I made it. That's going to be you and I walking into Walmart one day, and we buy like a pack of Feel Frees, and we supply ourselves for the next year, and we walk out of the store and we're like,
we did it.
We made it.
They did it. Most people will buy like Lamborghinis.
No.
Feel free.
Feel free.
Absolutely fantastic.
Feel free.
Absolutely fantastic.
Honestly, yeah. Hey, but that's what production's about, right? It's about setting goals and then being consistent with your production in order to obtain those goals.
Yeah. So we mentioned consistency a lot. And I know we started talking about production, but consistency and production, I think, go hand in hand, and you can't have one without the other. And how can people be more consistent? How can people, when it's hard, like when it's difficult to continue on and you want to quit, how can they just do it? How can they keep being consistent in being productive and getting the results they need?
Yeah. There's a guy online named Alex Hormozy who talks about it, and he talks a lot about just like mental states that you need to have in order to do certain types of tasks. And he says basically you need to look at it as a non-negotiable in your life, right? There's a lot of things that we have in life that we view as non-negotiable things, right? So one of them being like very obvious stuff, like you have to eat every single day, right? That's a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
You have to breathe every single day. That's a non-negotiable, right? If you do that, if you don't breathe, you're going to die, right? If
you
don't,
heard it here first. If you don't breathe, you will die.
Yeah. If you aren't working out or doing some sort of thing, eventually, like your mind is going to become weaker, right? If you're not reading, you know, these like non-negotiables in your life, not just necessarily daily, but non-negotiables in your life that you think of them and you're like, I have to do that, otherwise I'm going to go crazy, right? Consistency with a job has to be the same thing. You need to look at your job and be like, I need to do some sort of work, right? I need to be able to produce something. I need to be able to just do something, and I need to stay with it, right? And that type of work can take on many different forms, right? That can be a 9-to-5. That could be writing a book. That could be creating a song. That could be writing a poem, right? Any one of those things. But if you're going to do something, do it consistently and make it a non-negotiable in your life, right? If you want to write poetry, write a bunch of poetry. If you want to be a songwriter, write a bunch of songs. And don't hold it off as like one-off things, right? If you're going to write one song, write 2. If you're going to write one poem, write 2, right? If you're going to write 2, write 4, right? Like these things have to, like, if you can, the point is that you need to be able to prove to yourself that if you can do something, you can double it, right? If you can double it, you can quadruple it, right? These are the ideas, and I think that this is one of the things that you and I have really found, is that we've made our metrics, we've made our baseline, we've done our production, and that has caused X amount, right?
Yeah.
So theoretically, if we do the same amount Y is always going to be equivalent to the growth of X, right? They grow at the same percentage. That's consistency. It's seeing the fruits of your labor continue to grow the more that you put work in.
How can somebody who is inconsistent become consistent? I think that's where a lot of people falter, is they have these goals. They want to be writers. They want to be TikTok famous. They want to be on the varsity football team. They want to do whatever it is, but they can't take that first step. How do people jump out of that, execute? I think execution is just lost People talk all the time. I do this too. I've done this. You say, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm gonna be the varsity football player that I'm gonna have rushed 1,000 yards, whatever. But they don't do anything. They just talk, and then they lose credibility. And once you lose credibility, it's very, very hard to get back. And so I think people need to understand that we talked about this last podcast. Life is hard. It's never going to be easy. And when something is hard and you're struggling through it, that's good. That means you're doing something right. If you're not facing any kind of adversity, something is wrong, or you're really, really good at what you're doing. We found this with editing. Editing is not easy. It's hard. We're focusing more time into it, and it seems like for me, when I'm focusing more time in editing, it gets harder. It's like I learned, I did this cool camera trick. Mm-hmm. And then I can't figure out how I did
Well, it's like, you see, when you actually become immersed in something, you actually see all of the faults and everything that's wrong with it the more and more that you get better at it, right? It's like, and also you become more aware of all the other editing that people are doing. And you can see that some people make, like, really good edits.
Yeah.
Some really good videos. Like, every YouTuber out there, every big YouTuber out there, the videos that they make, you see the way that their video flows and you think, wow, this is so natural.
Yes.
And then you look at the edit that you just spent 2 hours on for like a 35-second clip.
It looks like a third grader made it.
And exactly. You think, wow, this is poop.
Yeah. And then also when you're sitting and editing, and obviously we produce a podcast, and you have to hear your voice over and over and over again.
That's
and
one of the
watch your
things,
face over and over again. Dude.
That's one of the things that kills me. It's like, it's just the repeatability of when you're listening to something, you have to constantly like replay stuff. Yeah. And when you constantly replay stuff, you have to constantly hear the same thing over and over and over again. And it just kills you. It just kills me.
It's so rough. Especially like we get up early in the morning, get on our computer, and then just hear ourselves talk. And it's like, oh, shut
Goes,
up.
Welcome back, guys. And then again, welcome back, guys. And then again, welcome back, guys.
Yeah.
Welcome to another podcast. Welcome to another podcast. It just goes on and on and on and on.
And I just had another thought too. So when you're being more consistent, you're being more productive, and you're kind of checking yourself. You're making sure you're progressing forward, and you're looking at like the work you've done, and you struggle like nitpicking yourselves, right? Like we just talked about, like you just hear every time we stutter, every time we say a word,
every time you say which I already know I've said
literally
too many times this podcast, but you hear it every single time.
And it's hard to do, and you have to take everything with a grain of salt. Like, all right, cool. I'm noticing that I'm saying other words that I shouldn't be saying. I'm using and like way too much. It's just using us for an example. And you have to learn from all experience. You can't be upset at yourself. Yeah. You have to look at everything in a positive light, no matter what it is. So you hey, we didn't meet our goals this month. We found this good and this good. We can improve on these little aspects. Yeah. And you have to be a friend to yourself. You have to like yourself. And you have to, like, for men, we have to respect ourselves. And we have to do things that earn our own respect. For me, it's working out. When I consistently work out, I respect myself. I will listen to myself when I say, hey, you need to be doing this. When I hear that voice in my head after I've not worked out in a month, I'm like, who are you talking to?
Yeah.
Even though it's still me, it's like, okay, you don't feel good.
Yeah.
And so that's what we need. People need to understand it's going to be a roller coaster. It's going to be lots of up and downs. Find the good in everything you do and do better on the bad.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that really speaks to just the general mindset of how you need to do this is that the results are not as important as the productivity. The results are obviously very important, but they're not as important as the productivity, yep. Right? If you get good results with bad productivity, you got lucky. If you got bad results with good productivity, you got unlucky. If you get bad productivity, you're almost always going to get bad results. If you have good productivity, you're more than likely going to receive good results, right?
You're going to see improvements in some kind of way.
Right.
Yeah,
the
100%.
productivity leads to the results. You don't have results without any productivity.
No, you can't. Yeah, you're right. You can't just sit there and like, I'm going to sit here right now. We're not going to edit anything, but we're going to have a #1 podcast.
Yeah. And I would say that you and I have had good productivity because we set good metrics for ourselves at the beginning of the month. But, you know,
Bro, I was trying not to lose it myself. That was absolutely beautiful. You're welcome, Lainey. But 100%, you have to, like, so I was watching a Mr. Beast video talking about, he wasn't talking about, it was not a Mr. Beast video, it was Mr. Beast talking about how he's kind of grown his channel. And he says, like, I'm not going to use the curse word, he says, your first video is going to be garbage and not get any views. Your first 100 videos are going to be garbage and not get any views. But the 101st one, that one might get views. And that just goes to show you that once you are working hard at something, you aren't going to see results right away unless you get lucky, and you could be very talented. But for the majority of people, you're going to have to work really hard. You're going to put in tons of hours, tons of work, your blood, sweat, and tears into something that you're passionate about, and one day you will see results. Yeah. Look at these musicians that produce music for years that you never hear, then they finally get their break.
Yep.
And then you go, wow. They're like I'll use Nick D for an example. So he took off in TikTok, like 2020, around COVID, when everyone was on TikTok and going crazy. But if you look, he's been producing music since like 2016, 2015. Good stuff too, like not horrible music, but he was just consistently making music, putting it out there, getting better, putting it out there, and eventually something broke. And that's what we're hoping to do. Yep. Being consistent, continuing to push to be the best podcast we can, become the best men we can.
Yep.
Grow a business, become the best husbands we can, and hopefully get a Fortnite dub here and there.
At the end of the day, yeah, you need to have those little small wins, and Fortnite definitely provides that. But no, I heard this from a salesman talking about the beginning of his sales career. He had a theory that as any good young salesman, you're not going to make it, and I think that this is consistent across any business or any sort of venture that anyone wants to go through. He called it the 99 no's to 1 yes, which is essentially you won't make it, you won't be able to drive yourself past the barrier of success if you're not able to accept 99 no's before receiving your first yes. Mm-hmm. So that means knocking on 99 doors before you get your first actual closing, right? And that is tough. That's mentally draining, right?
Oh, it's
if you can't,
horrible.
but he was saying, he's like, if you can't accept the fact that you're going to receive 99 no's before you get your first yes, you won't ever be successful because you can't take the rejection and you can't continue with it, right? Like, rejection stops you. The obstacles stop you. If obstacles stop you, then you're going to fail because there's always going to be obstacles, no matter what. The road always continues. The road always goes. The journey never stops until it's done, and it's not done until you're dead.
Yeah, 100%. Like, your highs don't stand a chance without your lows.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot be successful and grow at all unless you can take defeat. Mm-hmm. And nobody was successful overnight. It took work in some kind of capacity. I know we see on social media some people just become famous, but those people don't last very long. Being consistent, continuing to push to be better every single day. And we're saying a lot of things that other people have said. People a lot smarter than us and a lot more successful. And that just goes to show you that what we are saying and what everyone else is saying holds truth.
Because everyone's saying
it's the truth. But if you look at everything going on, you look at every business and you look at the people who are successful, the people that have gone from nothing to become something. Like, I forget his name, the guy that founded like Hollywood. He started as like, he worked in a movie theater, ended up working to buy one movie theater, then bought another one. Like, he literally started from nothing to owning a bunch of movie theaters in like the New England area. He had owned the most of the New England area, then moved over to what we now know as Hollywood and started Hollywood. Like, there's so many stories like that. there's not a story as someone woke up one day and he was the owner of a multi-billion-dollar business.
Right.
Like, that just does not happen.
Well, unless you're super lucky
And win the lottery.
and that's going to happen. But the thing is, like, you don't judge yourself based on those cases, right? You don't judge yourself based on the case of someone who got lucky. You judge yourself on the standard of, like, where you've come from. You always have to base yourself off of you.
Yes.
Don't ever judge yourself based on others, because everyone has a different story. Every development is unique, right? Every business is specific to that person that started it.
Yeah.
Right? And this is our business, right? We have our own unique path that we're trying to go down.
Yeah.
We're not following any sort of guide. We're not listening. I mean, we are listening to other people. We take their opinions into account. We take their strategies into account. But for the most part, everything that you and I do is calculated off our own ideas, right?
Yeah, what's working for us, not exactly what works for everybody else. And because we're looking at other people as okay, this person did this and that was good, but they did this and this was bad. And we kind of pick the pieces apart from other people and make it our own. That's how you build yourself and build a character and build your business.
Yeah. It's like different teams in a football league, right? Everyone is held to the same standards of the rules, right? The rule book that guides the NFL, every team has to follow it.
Yeah.
But every team has their own. There are almost infinite amounts of different strategies that offenses and defenses can both employ, right? And it's just contingent on the people that think about them.
Yep. And the skill and of their team, what someone might be good at. So if you're better at like research, focus on that, and then you know that's going to be good. And then where are you faulty at? Say you're faulty at writing. Okay,
Yep.
You can research stuff, but now you need to figure out how to write it. Adding everything together and becoming a well-rounded person.
Yeah.
And I think this is a good place to wrap this up. I think this was a great little conversation, and we know now we need to stay consistent. You guys need to stay consistent. Be the best you possibly can be. Everything on the internet is the truth and never a lie.
That's true.
It's true because you heard it on the internet.
This is a funny story. I got to tell you about this. So I saw this one picture it basically said, they always used to say, don't talk to people on the internet, don't accept food from strangers, and don't pay people for services online. And now with DoorDash, you get to talk to people online, you get to pay them for their service, and you receive food from them.
World is a crazy place. What is going to be next?
This is the modern age.
Yeah. What's next is this podcast is going to be released on the 6th of October. Wow, October, spooky season. We have some fun stuff planned for you guys then.
Oh, duh. It's always going to be 10 days after the fact of when we record it. So that was kind of obvious.
But we're learning. Math. We talked about being productive in editing, not math. So thank you for tuning in. If you stayed this long, follow. You probably already follow because it's probably Lainey. So thank you again, and we'll see you next time.
Yes. Thank you, Lainey, for rewatching so we get all of our views.